right, guys, thank you for joining us for this Alchemi-Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Phoenix Aurelius. We are back from a very long hiatus. We took the entire year of 2022 off to focus on a number of different projects. We've been very busy. And now that we're no longer producing spigyrosomal and liposomal vitamin C for our business and for Human Heart, Cosmic Heart, and other folks, we have freed up a lot of time, and I'm excited to be back. We have a couple of really great episodes in line for you this season, but this very first one is one that I am super excited about. I have wanted to do this interview since I met this man, and in fact, since I chatted with him. Tonight's guest is Jesse Wolf Hardin, or most of us just know him as Wolf. Wolf is an American author and the founder of the Animá Nature-Informed Teachings and Practices, as well as an artist, poet, musician, historian, and wilderness restorationist. He is the author of over 500 published articles and 9 books in fields such as personal growth, natural history, deep ecology, spirituality, nature, alternative healing, poetry, wildcrafting, American history, and the legends of the Wild West. He's also an herbalist. He and his wife, Kiva Rose, have been doing the plant healer work for quite a long time, which includes the Herbaria Monthly, the Plant Healer Quarterly publications, as well as sponsoring the Good Medicine Confluence, which I think is in its 13th year. He currently lives and teaches at the Animá Sanctuary located in the mountainous wildlands of Southwest New Mexico, and a very dear friend of mine, instant kindred when I saw him first. So welcome to the show, Wolf. How are you doing, brother?
So good to see you again. Missed you.
I know. Likewise, man. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this year's Good Medicine Confluence, just so that we have the opportunity to hang out again.
Oh man, a lifetime of avoiding the status quo and the buzziness out there, and then meet a few people that you just can't get enough time with.
I know, isn't that just the coolest? So life will throw curveballs all the time.
Thank goodness for that, though.
Yeah, seriously. So, you've had one hell of a past, and we'll get into it over the show here. But one of the things that you're really well known for these days is, of course, the Good Medicine Confluence, the Herbaria Monthly, and the Plant Healer Quarterly, which can all be found on your website at planthealer.org. We'll include links down in the description. Tell us a little bit more about how you got started with herbalism and why you started. What was the impetus for creating these publications, and especially the Good Medicine Confluence?
Well, leading up to that was over 30 years of teaching earth and spirituality, or ecocentric, deep ecological, justice-oriented spiritual teachings, very much grounded in the earth. And so has some elements of paganism and certainly nature connection, and the concept of healing. And even more than that, the concept of Gaia, of living earth, that's constantly self-healing through various processes and agencies. And so when I got with my wife, Kiva, who was already a learned practicing herbalist, I could immediately see all the connections between healing ourselves and our bodies with the use of plants and any kind of nature connection, nature awareness, or nature spirituality, because we're not just benefiting, as you so well know, from the chemicals and the agents found within the plants, but also through a connection to them in the way that they serve the larger ecosphere of which humans are just a part. And so it was an easy sliding into that. Little did I know it would take up the vast majority of our time, and it's almost 16 years now of producing the publications, and as you said, 13 years of producing the event. So it's pretty much taken over, but we've completely infused it with the earth spirit, the earth magic, the sense of discovery, curiosity, alchemy, wonderment, which and the lore, which really are at the heart of the most powerful forms of healing.
Yeah, man, I have to agree with you. Yeah, just, really tapping into the ecology, the energetics of the ecology, the natural development of herbs as individual identities, with personalities of their own, souls of their own, volition of their own, is something that I think gets wildly overlooked in this modern age. And in fact, most herbalists that I know these days really care a whole lot less about that type of traditional aspect or the plant lore or anything, as much as they care about kind of the chemistry of it. It's almost like herbalism has taken on this very much so pharmacology or pharmaceutical based view over the last 15 to 20 years. And I think that so much gets lost when we look at it just through that lens.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's like everything else in the human world, certainly today. There's no balance. There's very little nuance, not a huge amount of critical thinking. What we have are some extreme concepts that, because they're so inflexible, become dogmatic. So on the one hand, we do indeed have people like who join the professional herbal organization with add the letters to the end of it, are talk strictly in terms of chemistry, and really miss the joy, the excitement, the childlike ecstasy, the magical explorations, and the deep personalization of a relationship with the plants in the plant world. On the other hand, you have the other extreme where people feel a magical connection to the plant world, to all of the biota, but they've neglected science. They can't necessarily identify plant parts. They put down a lot of aspects of I don't want to say left brain, but certainly the rational research, clinical oriented aspects of it. What we consider most valuable is when neither of those are ignored, that we always test our personal experience and our sense of intuition and magic against research and personal experience with actual clients and with our own bodies. And likewise, that we don't accept any research or information whatsoever, no matter how credible it seems, without a daily constant test and application.
I think that is actually critical, is combining both of those kind of hemispheres of the brain in our approach to herbalism. And that was actually one of the things that I absolutely loved about last year's Good Medicine Confluence. I mean, I was hooked the second that we got there and we started seeing, Lori Quessenberry, for one, that, oh my goodness, when you talk about a very right brain creature and completely intuitive with the plants, of course, she does know how to identify different parts of plants as a good digger for a long time. But yeah, you've got, on one extreme, you have that. And then on another extreme, you had folks like Dr. Kenneth Profruck, who, yeah, and I don't want to discount his connection to the plants and his work with magic either, but his understanding of the chemistry and the biochemistry, the sciences and everything is really, really fascinating. And to be able to have that scope of diversity. And again, those were just a couple of the classes that I had time to go to. We had a vending booth. There were hundreds, I think, of classes and presentations last year, weren't there?
Yeah, 140 classes.
Oh man, and getting all the teachers for that must be like herding cats.
That's why I spend all year in conversation, 30 to 40 exchanges with each and every one of them. And it's we need that blend. I mean, once again, it's for us, it's balance, because that's what the earth is teaching us. That's always a constant balancing. I mean, nothing is solid. If something is concrete, it ends up cracking in the ice, it ends up being destroyed. What lasts, what's vibrant, what grows, what feeds us, what sustains us, what brings beauty to existence is this interspersing, intercoursing of energies, of perspectives, of ideas, of people. And so to have some of the most renowned practitioners that are with the well-known names that call so-called rock stars come, very important. To have people come that have never even spoken before in front of a crowd, that have the passion, the excitement, and a special perspective that's a little bit different from everybody else's, a set of experiences that we know are different than everybody else's. And to be able to give them a platform and empower them, it's just part of the magic. And so to bring in the elders with the young, the experienced with the less experienced, the alchemical with the chemical, and so that none of those conflict. Those are all part of this ever spinning, mixture, this virtual tonic for the planet that I believe herbalists and this tribe of people especially are a veritable tribe of misfits like yourself, I must say. And by that I mean unboxable in the most positive ways.
Right.
But those people whose passion exceeds their desire to fit in, those whose love exceeds fear, those whose courage and bravery exceeds all the reasons that we have to be anxious trying to put forth this vision in this world today. That is what you represent. That's what this tribe is meant to be. A single tent under which everyone can fit, from Laura Casenberry's wild craziness from the backwoods, to the most scientific minded person, together on their knees, crawling around under the plants, absolutely amazed at what nature provides and gives.
Yeah, well, and it sure drives a very eclectic crowd too. I noticed that there were a lot of folks who were there just for the kind of herbalism aspect and didn't know quite what to expect. There were other people who were there more for the very interesting, plant energetics and magic and, things like that. And you got people and developed connections there. All of us did, with the most unlikely sorts, actually, because it's like that we wouldn't have known that we had such common interests based on the diversity of who, just like how we show up in the everyday world. So I feel that event is absolutely amazing, and to put it on for 13 years is actually no small task. Like you said, 40 communications, and that's probably a very conservative number sometimes, with each and every presenter and having so many presentations over like a 4-day period. That is just impressive. And I'm sure that it's it's really kind of a labor of love in a lot of regards. What is it that drives you to do that? Well, like why do you put so much effort into this? What's your hard belief behind it?
Well, it fits into my mission to have a lasting effect on how human nature interacts with the natural world. I want to give something in a way, whether it's my artwork, my music, my writings, these gatherings, it's all the same thing. Those are means and mechanisms and agents for putting out to the world the gifts, whatever gifts I possibly can muster up. I want people to feel loved and cared about. I want them to recognize that I recognize them, and that in the face of all the obstacles, all the disbelief, all the challenges, the financial deprivations, people not believing in them, that I believe in them. And that's what I've always done throughout my life, whether it was in the radical environmental movement, doing my work with the indigenous peoples, the Gwich'in. Always it's been, how can I give a gift that empowers human beings to be more than what we've come to know ourselves as, more than just manipulators of resources, more than frightened people struggling to get by with a relationship we may not be happy with, at a job we may not be satisfied with, and find our gifts, find our calling, find where we're needed most, and apply ourselves. I just can't, no matter how many wars happen, how much injustice, how much racism, I just can't write off humanity. We as humans blossomed amongst all the other flowers to have a special color, a special rainbow of colors, special way of presenting ourselves, a poesy, a symbolism, an ability to see the unseen, which was not common even to the most wondrous of other species. So for that, we have a special gift that we could honor. And rather than writing ourselves off as mechanical, lost, over-governed, on a destructive course to self-destruction, we can see that we are wild weeds, that each and every one of us has a particular place in which we can insert, grow ourselves up through the soil of the earth, rooted in that purpose, in that planet, doing our thing, in the winds, facing the storms, enjoying life.
Geez, yeah, very eloquently and poetically stated. Hey there, folks. Phoenix Aurelius here, and I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Alchemi-Culture Podcast. If you like this episode so far, I know something you're going to absolutely love, and so I want to invite you to join me and dozens of other healers at the Good Medicine Confluence at the incredibly scenic Puma Hills Mountain Retreat in beautiful Lake George, Colorado from July 18th through 22nd, 2023. There are over 100 educational lectures, presentations, classes, and workshops from about 40 different instructors, myself being one of those.
This year, I'll be giving 4 dynamic lectures and presentations, which you can find more about on our website. So whether you have tons of experience or none at all with subjects such as herbalism, alchemy, spagyria, alternative medicine, essential oils, brewing, entheogens, and more, you're still going to find plenty of opportunities to learn, grow, share, and meet like-minded individuals. The Phoenix Aurelius Research Academy is a sponsor of the Good Medicine Confluence, so I'll not only be presenting, but we'll also have a vendor booth set up where we bring and sell about 50 different items of spagyric pharmacopoeia, which are all filled and bottled to order. This means that we can make custom formulations for you on site, and we also offer a special 30% discount on all of our products, both online and at our booth, just for attendees of the event. And yes, we will be bringing Tibetan rhodiola, cordyceps, and other herbs that help with altitude adjustment, just in case you're a little intimidated about being 10,000 feet above sea level. Here at the Research Academy, the Good Medicine Confluence is our favorite event of the year. The people you meet are amazing, the presentations are outrageously good, the scenery and beauty of the location are unrivaled, and the events are absolutely awesome. At night this year, there's going to be a lot of music and fireside chats, lots of stargazing and astronomy, and you definitely don't want to miss the Saturday night masquerade ball. You can go to phoenixaurelius.org and click on the Media and Events tab, and then click on the Good Medicine Confluence drop-down for links to more information and also to purchase your tickets. When you purchase your tickets using our website link, we get a portion of your ticket sales to help fund this podcast and all of our other work here at the Phoenix Aurelius Research Academy. So visit our website at phoenixaurelius.org, and we'll see you at the Good Medicine Confluence this July.
So with that being said, you referenced a couple of things from your past. Let's talk about radical ecology and the radical ecology movement and your part in it. When was this? What was going on socially, and how did you get involved?
Well, I entered ecology, but at a particular time, just as I did to herbalism. When I entered herbalism, things were fairly moribund. There were herbs on the shelves of the major discount stores, but there weren't a lot of herbalists. Folk herbalism was laughed at and put down, and so many people were struggling to have enough scientific credibility, enough letters out to their names to be accepted in the larger healing community. So I inserted right at the moment when we could open it up to other possibilities, spin it around. That's when revolutions happen, is not at a moment of total stability, but just when there's this instability going on, and you can just come in there and create something entirely new. It was the same for ecology. For years and years and years, it was a male-dominated, Anglo-dominated way of looking at resources. It still saw plants not as beings, not as soulful, not as magical, certainly, but rather as important elements of an ecosystem, which of course they are, and as resources that we could wisely sometimes, unwisely at other times, extract for our own benefit. Thus, you have clear cuts of forests, and as Lori teaches, complete wiping out of ginseng populations in parts of the Appalachia, alongside people that are benefiting hugely from it, taking care of it, trying to cultivate it, protecting the habitat of the plants. So all these things happen at the same exact time. So for ecology to be stuck in a place that sees things as things rather than beings, that's where deep ecology was inserted. It was an attempt to enter with a social consciousness about indigenous practices with the native planet, native practices with the native planet. It was a way to reintroduce a ceremonial ritual approach to the living earth, to the plants that we use for herbs, to the plants we use for food, to the animals that sustain us. It was a way to tackle the paradigm, the dominant paradigm, the system, whether it be management of resources such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or the U.S. Forestry Department, and take them head on with, no, this is wrong. We are giving voice to the earth, to the unheard. We're sending out a prayer, as people have done, of every color on every continent since the beginnings of human existence, sending out a prayer and swearing that we will protect that which is most important, not only to life on the planet, that's great, continue to exist sustainability, I'm all for it, but also for the magic and the wholeness of that living entity called Gaia, of which we are just one dancing character amongst the fungi, the bacteria, the, all of those plants, all of those animals, all those beings, and participants within that with the responsibility. And so to enter ecology at a moment when that was so desperately needed was very exciting. And that was probably 25, 26, 27 years of writing books on the subject, which are still available. And that then segued in basically into, now here's the same thing going on with herbalism. We have plants being looked at too much as resources, as things that can make us money. Herbalism is something that can make us feel important, instead of we are the servants of something very special. We're the celebrants of something very special.
I think that is really one of the more important concepts. I constantly use the term in my own work, stewardship, and I'm constantly relating to the human capacity to understand nature over time, as well as nature understands herself. And over generations and generations and generations, we, with all of our senses, our ability to develop technology, et cetera, and by technology, I don't necessarily mean just computers. I mean, casting bronze and making a spade to be able to terraform things in order to create a microenvironment, et cetera. That's all technology. We have the ability to work with nature in such a beautiful way. In fact, when I take a look at all of the things that distinguish humanity from every other species, it's really that. It's that ability to understand, to interact with nature as a lover, not just as a mother, where we're the rebellious teenagers that need to be cleaned up after. And it seems like such a squandering of the human potential and the human capacity to not even acknowledge that, or to participate and to enjoy and to live in such a way where we can celebrate that, because this is the only biosphere that we have available to us. This is the playground. This is the classroom. This is the entire corpus of our existence. And just to look at it as something to take from, to steal from, and inanimate, I think really robs the entire experience of its meaning and of its beauty and grandeur.
Exactly. Well, and that's to me, that's worse than us destroying the potential for life on the earth, even, because we destroy the potential for joy, for connection, meaning. And if humans have any role at all that's special, and I don't even know for certain that it's more advanced than that of a cordyceps consciousness, but it would be that we are aware that we don't know it all, that there's more to be found, that we have gifts to give, and that we have a special walk to walk. And that's, if we do that, then we brought something, no matter what happens, what else happens on the planet, we brought something special to the game. And we can be proud of it. That can be our saga. That can be our tale, our story. That's what we get up, stand up on the rock and share with the rest of our kind, is the amazing story, not just of us, but of them. And that them includes not just people, but every living being.
Yeah, that's hyper-inclusivity. In a time where most people are trying to argue about gender rights, race rights, et cetera, there is still so much being left out. If we could just zoom out from that issue, it would be automatically incorporated, that we wouldn't have to be fighting about these social issues, because we would see, oh, we are just humanity in totality. And then you zoom out and see, flora and fauna, and just the wisdom of biospheres and bioregions themselves, the bioregional animus, so to speak, the soul of that area. Genius loci is another way that's been talked about. And
exactly. That's everything you're saying is at the heart of my book, Healing Terrain, really, which is that's that genius loci that's at the center, the veritable center of everything, our experience, of our potential, our mistakes, and certainly all of our hopes.
Well, it's interesting too. I don't think a lot of people in the modern age really put it together, but we are a major contributing component to that genius loci. And in the modern age, it largely, well, and in certain places in the historical past even, various locations take on kind of an intelligence or an animus all of its own. Like, you know, if you think about the difference between New York City and say Salt Lake City or Santa Fe, every single one of these places is so absolutely unique. And part of that is based on the geography, okay, the genius loci, the intelligence of that area, but how it gets developed by other animals, by other creatures, especially by humanity, it takes on a whole different flavor and a whole different mind of its own. New personalities evolve. Like I would consider Santa Fe to probably be one of the safer and nicer and more homogenous communities that I've ever seen in my entire life. I love the way that, you know, the terracotta type of look and the natural clay and adobe type of look fits into the landscape. I love all of the artists, and, you know, there's a ton of silver work and, you know, gems and stuff there. You have a lot of silver work, you have a lot of gems, you have all these other things in New York, but it's a whole, I mean, you have centuries and centuries of different colonization histories influencing that area. You have all of the different immigrants that have come to the area and so on and so forth. It creates entirely different living bioregions and biospheres. And we as humans are an integral component of that. We are not different than that. We are part of that. And it's important, I think, for a lot of us to think about honoring the trees, honoring the earth that we stand upon, honoring the space, you know, the square footage, the footprint that our houses and our dwellings take up that otherwise detract from space for other things, and to be able to be conscious of that. If we're not conscious of that, then in a large way, we're creating our own doom. That's just the end of the story. When you usurp and usurp and usurp and don't regenerate and at all or contribute, somebody's going to go hungry in the end. There's not enough provider to sustain all of the takers.
No, and it's not just taking. I mean, that's one aspect of it. But twin to that is not feeling a part of it. So the reason why we can take and usurp, as you say, is all those people moved. I mean, most of the cultures that moved into New York came there as migrants. They were bringing something from outside and trying to keep it alive there, rather than allowing the place, as Santa Fe did, to help define, and so many other places like I mentioned in the United States, from the Northwest to the Southeast. But it can be the place that helps define what our cultural expressions are. So then our artwork and our dance and our architecture, you know, whether we're using adobe or not, or using sloped, you know, roofs because we're way up north in the heavy snows, all of that is a reflection of the place itself. It's the place teaching us how to express itself. And so when we lose connection, then we have the opportunity to be only takers. To the degree that we're connected, then it becomes more difficult to be just a taker. We become conscious of the ways we're taking, compassion about any harms that we're causing, and because our identification expands to whatever it is that we're interacting with. This is why, as important as all the social issues are, and I believe very strongly in overturning the social inequality structure of civilization. But the best way to do that is by connection. You know, by not hyper-focusing on one particular aspect of an issue, but by, as you said, stepping back and seeing what is the ecosystem of that, what feeds into those activities and actions, what gives that form its form, why is that person hateful? Always a fear. Where does that fear come from? Okay, what are the things that can treat that fear? What is it about life that's missing, that's not helping heal them? And by heal, I mean, as I do in herbalism, making whole, making more whole. You know, by discovering a connection with a person, it becomes almost impossible to dismiss them. Somebody that doesn't like trans, for any of the many different reasons I've heard from all sides, if they're sitting next to a trans person and talking to them, and they allow themselves to connect, then that person becomes part of their identity. I identify with them. We have these things in common. From the moment that you feel, even if it's just we're fellow animals, but let alone if it is, we both dress a little weird, don't take no shit, and the system wants to squash us. That's a hell of a lot to have in common right there.
Well, and if we were to actually think about things on that type of level rather than the more superficial levels, I think that we would find a lot more commonality and have a lot more, shall we say, cooperation with our neighbors. Right now, we are so distant and we know so little about the actual working conditions. And I don't mean like the workplace conditions. I mean working conditions psychologically, spiritually, physiologically of the people around us, that we find the superficial things to notice. Like you were talking about, this guy doesn't look like me, which I get all the time. I'm sure you get that all the time too. It's like, this guy doesn't look like me. Like, what the hell is his?
Like me, but yes, in general, no.
Exactly. Well, and like you were talking about, there's actually less difference between, somebody who identifies as transsexual and myself than what you might think at the surface, because again, all of those things that you just mentioned, you have, we don't look like, we don't necessarily fit in, and the system is trying to squash us. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm a victim or they're victims necessarily. It's not that the system is deliberately going out there to try and squash minorities or anything. It just doesn't leave a whole lot of room for freedom in the way that it's set up in order for people to actually have a chance based on background and predisposition. And I think that that's one of the major things.
We can apply that. We can step out then one step further, like you said, and keep pulling back so that we have a larger aperture, larger range of sight, of awareness. Basically, we can say, okay, I'm aware now of my area, so I'm getting a sense of the place that I'm in, what I owe to it, and how I heard it, and how I help it. Now I move back and I'm aware of the people that are next door to me, that are in class with me, that work with me, the people that I thought were too right-wing to relate to, too left-wing to relate to whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you step back and say, no, I have connections to that, therefore they become part of the identity. Step back even a little bit further, and then it's, okay, I'm part of an ecosystem. This ecosystem in the Southwest, for example, different from every other ecosystem in the world. It has a specific species that evolved to thrive best in this exact contextual environment, whether it's the weather, the acidity of the soil, the amount of solar gain, all of that comes into effect, as an influence. Humans that live here or don't live here. I mean, absence of humans is also an influence. All of these things create this. So we can look back and say, okay, I'm a part of this ecosystem. So everything I do is having an effect on the ecosystem. The ecosystem's having an effect on me. For that reason, how can I treat it in a racist way? How can I say, oh, it's just, animals, do what we want to? How can I say it's okay to kill plants, they don't have any feelings? How can I say it's okay for me to live the way I do, even though I'm causing more and more concrete to be laid down on a living, breathing planet that I'm a part of? Step back a little further, we can see the whole globe. We know, thanks to those beautiful pictures from satellites, how gorgeous this planet is. What if we identify with that? How are we going to fuck over China? How are we going to fuck over anything in the world once we know we are part of that world? That we have a place in it, we're aware of our place in it, aware of its song, and aware of the ways that we contribute to harmony or disharmony of that song.
Totally. So I've gone on quite a few different interviews and podcasts where we have garnered a lot of support. And I know that a lot of our listeners are listening to certain terms right now and just freaking out. I mean, there's satellite deniers, there's people who they relate environmentalism or just that entire movement with Agenda 2030 or with another big system trying to control the way that people move and shift into, an ecologically friendly state. There's just so many things that I think people are going to freak out about right now. I'm wondering if we can spend some time kind of bridging some gaps between huge pieces of consciousness, because, for instance, I'm not necessarily sold on carbon dioxide being one of our major contributors to what's called climate change. And in fact, the entire term of climate change is actually a really kind of elusive term on its own. I'm not 100% sold on everything that I've heard there. That being said, it's common sense that when you burn combustible fuels all day long to power everything, that there are contaminants inside of the air. I think carbon dioxide is one of the least influential things. Of course, carbon sequestration is great, but it's one of the least influential things to the health of the planet, to ecosystems, and to humanity itself. Like, we have, of course, just diesel exhaust has something like 15 different hazardous toxic metals that are contained within it, including zinc and lead and aluminum and, all sorts of other things. What does it, really look like for those things to get into the soil over time, to change the way that the bacteria, the archaea, the fungi, the protozoa, the parasites, and so on and so forth, algae? These are the building blocks that break down materials and make them available to us as soil so that things can grow. And so for me, the issue isn't how much carbon dioxide can we sequester, how much carbon can we sequester, how much things like that, although I am still on board with a lot of those things. But the question really becomes, how can we clean and restore the vitality to our ecosystem, and how/why does that benefit us and our species? Because unless, most people are just terribly selfish. They can't think outside of themselves or even put on a hat that's called altruism at all. And so unless we make it important on the personal level as to why these things are important, I just don't think most people are going to get on board. How do you feel about that as well?
Well, absolutely. And you can't convince anybody with science, nor should science be the only measure anyway, because it's constantly changing. I mean, science by its very definition is that which, where we eliminate that which doesn't test out, and then we constantly retest and adjust accordingly. It's never an absolute end of this is what it is. It's this is what it isn't. We're endlessly coming up with this is what it isn't. So it is one measure done that way of the impacts that we're having. But the problem with that is that we find one that's a little bit sexy. We push it as a poster child. Even when we talk about it as how it benefits or hurts humans. Okay, Florida is going to flood. That's a good homocentric reason not to have climate change. But the issue I have really isn't how true or not true the science is, but it's the fact that a corporate structure is never going to change for the good of the planet. It's not going to change for the good of the people with houses on the beach. Corporate structure is determined entirely by, and we set it up this way in our governments and taxation, entirely by profit.
Yeah.
And therefore, unless we can eliminate profit, we cannot eliminate these factors. And like you said, too much hyper focus can be harmful. How much are we talking about the amount of plastic that's in the ocean? I know it's people are somewhat aware of it now, but we're destroying an entire ocean, set of oceans. We're not just changing the weather. So it's like the Earth itself, if we talk about this living Gaia, this planet surviving, it will survive the worst that happens in terms of climate change. It will be difficult for us. I'm dealing with more wildfires, whatever the cause. I'm here witness to it in 50 years of being in the same sanctuary. But the Earth itself will survive that. What it may not survive is some of the other things we're doing to it. The poisons, the effects of nuclear waste disposal, I could go on and on. The creation of new viral organisms to the degree that we do that and allow them to be released. Altering the human genome. I mean, there are so many things that could spell a destruction of humanity, and so many things that could spell destruction of the entire living ecosystem, not ecosystem, but biosphere of the Earth.
Yeah. Well, and that's really important, especially with the plastic bottle thing, or they've done away with most of this stuff now, but those plastic things that would hold your 6 packs of beer together, or 6 pans,
right. Around it next to the turtles and all.
Yeah, exactly. The plastic bags, all of the straws, all these things that are harming the aquatic life. the aquatic life goes, then the biosphere of that ocean or that area goes, which means that fishing goes, which means that you don't have food to eat, or at the very best, that other people are displaced from jobs, and then putting a greater burden on social welfare systems and so on and so forth. So it really doesn't matter where you sit on the political spectrum. Getting involved ecologically and understanding the effect that you're having is really important, and not just from a scientific angle. In fact, my first angle was actually from smoking cannabis, sitting down with cannabis in the forest, being high as hell, looking around. It's the same thing that got me into alchemy, was looking at these plants and saying, I don't know a single one of their names or what they do. Well, holy shit, I don't know anything about this ecosystem that I'm in. It took me a while to learn about the names of the trees and the names of the plants, and even longer to learn how to utilize them. But once you do that, and then you go out there and you see, once you've developed these connections, you see litter on the ground, you see, people just errantly walking off trail and crunching tons of plants, not to mention, especially in our desert microbiomes, all of the delicate microbes that are inside of that soil. It crushes you in a way, because you've come to identify yourself as part of that biosphere. So it doesn't necessarily have to be through a scientific angle. Mine happened to be through, mind-altering substance. And then that further gets reiterated with, many different base psychotropic or psychoactive plant medicines, hallucinogenic mushrooms and ayahuasca and iboga and, all of these more common ones that are out there today. Those oftentimes will produce that sensation of feeling and connection. And if you're not willing to do any of those things, look at the science, understand the science to the best of your capacity, or to perform your own science. Remember that science is really just a method of questioning and saying, how do we know what we know, and how do we attain answers to try and understand more about the environment that we live in and how it operates and so on and so forth. It doesn't have to be the type of scientific rationale that we're using in the modern age in order to be able to question these things and to know these things, but to simply just rely on our own faculties as human individuals to connect with the trees, with the plants, with the animals, with the insects, and so on and so forth. It's a really critical concept, and something that I feel.
Our faculties.
Yeah. So I know a lot of our listeners are like, okay, you guys are dancing around things, you're Agenda 2030 pushers and blah, 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 blah. Listen, I personally absolutely hate the whole concept of Agenda 2030. Crowd people into cities, give them smart devices, keep, green cities, develop batteries. None of that shit is actually green. And that's the main concept that a lot of these people have against it, not to mention any sort of violation of freedoms that come into there. But here's the thing. People would not need to do that if we as individuals actually took accountability for our own things. Like, for instance, how many of you actually process your own shit? Think about that. You're just able to flush it. You're able to take water that comes from some sort of municipality typically, and then to flush it down, and then you don't even have to deal with it. In every other time, in every other culture, we have to process our own shit. We need to know where it goes and how it goes. And there is a strong metaphor that goes with that, which is, if you're not processing your physical shit that you are taking and making, the waste that you are constantly producing, and not able to see where it goes, what happens to it, how to make it fertile again, how to be able to utilize it as fertilizer or to some beneficial use, then you're completely disconnected with a very important piece of the web, so that you're constantly taking and you don't even have to worry about your waste or other things. These types of concepts are absolutely critical to conceive of, because this is the type of shit that taps us into our physical environment and our real bodies, the way that we really are built, and not just allowing pre-existing commodities to be able to take care of these things, because other people have to process your shit. And in a lot of cases, then they're recycling that water with chemicals and other things to pump back into your drinking water. Not the best way of doing it. There are a lot of better ways of doing it. So, I'm not all for Agenda 2030 in any way, shape, or form, to be perfectly honest with you. But what I am for is people taking personal accountability for everything that they consume and everything that they have as waste, and being able to reconstitute that in some way. And it's going to take an enormous amount of effort for most people to be able to do this, because they're on grid, they're in cities, they're living lives that are largely unconscious, where your emails take more precedent over the garden that you may or may not even grow, or, wild harvesting foods or the herbs that you're going to take. You rely on other people for every aspect of your creation. That, I think, is the error in our humanity. And so when people confuse my ecological stance towards, oh, he's just going with the crowd on the science, it has nothing to do with that. It goes back to living in a way where we are symbiotic with nature. And that's something that segues into what I want to talk to you about. Is you have a large sanctuary you have to cross. We've had multiple conversations about this, like 7 rivers, right? 7 big streams in order to get even onto your property. You live way out in the middle of nowhere.
1 river, 7 crossings, but there's no way to avoid getting across them to get home.
Yeah. So living way out, what are the things that you do that help to create a sense of sustainability and the minimal impact on the land? I mean, I'm sure that you have to go into town. You still, are going to be getting groceries and things like that. But do you also farm out any of the land where you're at, or grow other things? Like, what does your situation look like out there, Wolf?
No, well, anytime you're purchasing rural property, you have 2 choices, or many choices, but you have 2 dichotomies, I think. It's a big dichotomy around whether to, or how much to, I should say, not whether, how much to alter it for your own purposes and needs, and how much to serve its purposes and needs. Ideally, we do a bit of both. Mm-hmm. But coming to a place that's wilderness, and it's an inholding surrounded by, on all sides, by 3.5 million acres of national forest. And so it is not only nearly inaccessible due to the river, but it's also representative of a wild canyon of the Southwest Mountains, which exists in so few places. Usually someplace this beautiful, if it's accessible, which this isn't, will have been turned into some kind of a tourist or glamping or something. I'm not saying those things are bad, but it will have been altered to a human purpose.
Yeah.
So I came here with the idea of rewilding, which is a term that I first coined, in fact, way back in 1979, actually. But it is a process of returning ourselves and our environs into a wild state. I do not necessarily recommend that for all property. I certainly don't recommend it for all people. But I do hold fast to the fact that inside of us is a wild being, a more aware being, a more responsible being that can respond to what's around us, that can become aware of what's around us and not depend on rules or enforced ethics or laws or governments that tell us what to do. We don't need to do that to the degree that we have awareness and responsibility and ability and informed ability to respond. So when I talked about rewilding, it was about the same time I was coming to this property. What could I do for this land? So what I thought in my mind was, what plants were here? I did a major survey of what existed, and I determined which ones were from outside that had come in as weed plants to take the place of more sensitive native ones that had been killed, and which ones were harmful, or in some ways, no plant is just harmful, but some are overly invasive or overly proliferate, like horehound, which was taking over certain spots. Salt cedar, which has come in and can choke out the entire river if I allowed it to. So I had to determine then what plants used to exist there and what animals. There were cougars there, there were bears there. There were all of these hundreds and hundreds of herbs that we've reestablished. They're here again. The cougars are here again, mating every year. The bear are down there scratching their ass on what little bit of barbed wire that the river has left intact. And every decision I've made has been on how can I survive being here, which isn't easy, while doing the least harm and allowing the place to become itself. So just as I do with other herbalists, how can I help you be more yourself? Other students of mine and students of Animá, how can I help you be more the wild, aware being that you are, the dreaming animal with dreams to pursue? I'm doing that with the land. What are your dreams, land? What was here before and what can be here again? What will help you best flourish? What things should I stop with a double-barrel shotgun at the first crossing? What things should I bring in? What prayers should I make? And that's been a 50-year learning process.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing because there's so much wilderness where you live. Where did you start? Just in the area right around your abode, right around your dwelling, and then just kind of spread out? Or how did you take that on? Because you steward a pretty significant quantity of land, don't you?
It's 80 acres total that I'm taking responsibility for, a portion of which I actually own. But ownership doesn't matter because we've signed all these covenants which actually prevent anybody from making decent money by reselling them or doing a huge amount to develop the place. Domestic animals which could have served us in terms of farming, and I love farming. We made up agreements that disallow that because it's beneficial to the land that there not be goats here, that there not be horses feeding here. Especially at the point where it was just growing back again. So as stunned as I was at the giant cliffs, the red and purple volcanic cliffs and the native from 1,000 years ago paintings and pictographs on the walls, you know, of what looked like a wolf with teats, you know, right on the cave wall I was sitting and bringing tears to my eyes. And everything was so damn gorgeous. Every ponderosa pine was like coming home to a friend, you know, every oak, every juniper. And yet, over the years, it's been proven. Now we have an entire forest of cottonwoods that weren't here. The river is lined with willows that weren't here. Like I said, the mountain lions are back, screaming their passionate screams at every lovemaking season. And all around us are these, you know, beings that we have helped allow to be themselves. Not force them to be something else any more than we'd force people to live in the woods or to live in a city, but to allow them to be aware of themselves, to value themselves, and then to make the right choices to flourish. Same thing I want to give people is what we tried to give this land.
That is absolutely beautiful. And again, very poetic. So you mentioned it's been one hell of a learning journey for you. How has the land adapted? You obviously talked about certain things like horehound, which was in way too plentiful amount for it to really contribute to the ecosystem in any significant way. You also talked about the introduction of the cottonwoods and of the willows. Your goal is obviously not to take out some of these transplants, but rather to keep them in check with the environment so that it's growing and evolving. Is that the way that I understand that?
Exactly. I'm not God. I don't want to make the decisions on what species to abolish any more than I want to abolish, you know, any group of people or even a way of thinking. Some of the most distasteful ways of thinking make me smile because they contribute to the diversity and the agitation that we need in order to evolve. But what is absolutely essential is that there be a mobile, moving, fluctuating balance. You know, we well know that when you spin a top in order to get the best balance, then it can balance on a tiny little amount. You need a huge, super flat base in order to keep yourself upright otherwise. But if you're moving, if you're doing the dance, and so everything is about the dance, species interacting with other species, being aware of how that best works and doesn't work, who's thirsty, who's blocking the shade, who's providing just enough shade, you know, where is that balance? And where is that mobile, moving, you know, fluctuating balance? That's what I've sought in myself, to only limited success, but we've had great success with the land. Right now, you know, biologists came down here, and I'm, like I said, I spent my life fighting laws, and when I was an environmentalist, I was out breaking laws. So, you know, when I talk about working with the Guichin, I wasn't just giving poetic deep ecology medicine shows to raise money for them. I was getting arrested to help protect the last caribou herd, the porcupine caribou herd, from destruction by the oil companies. So basically, putting ourselves, our bodies literally on the line. And that's what we're doing with every act of love, as with every act of resistance. I don't want a legislation. I don't want a law. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I want everybody to be aware enough of themselves, of their hearts, of each other, and of the planet to start doing the right thing. And the right thing will not just be the best for the climate change or the best for other animals or even for herbs and plants. It will be the thing that's most beautiful, most fun, most exciting, most fascinating, most amazing, most propelling.
Yeah, you and I are of a mind on that one, because it's just, yeah, for many, many years, ever since I was really little, is like, God, why can people just not get it together to the point where we can live in that type of way? Like, it's so possible. It's not even like we even have to reach out and grab it. It's already here. We just have to really acknowledge that reality in order to it's a mindset shift. It's so simple.
That's why when you spoke about the plants earlier, I kind of wanted to interject, but you were being so damn interesting, I didn't want to say a word. But it's not going to be the science that determines it, because even when science is right, people don't make decisions based on logic, not even on their well-being, only on what's immediately seems to be making them feel better. And that might just be a Facebook portrait of somebody that doesn't really look like them. So
Right.
It's not going to be legislated, it's not going to be laws, and it's not even going to be science. What it's going to be is that we listen and stop projecting on the world, stop using what we say it's telling us to do as a reason for anything, but rather to truly shut up and listen. And that's more a process of eating ayahuasca than it is of planting the plants that you mix to make it. It's more about the sitting on the ground as you did in an open state, whatever it takes you to get there, and being open to what's being given to you, not just constantly thinking you know. And that connection, that baseline, that root, that openness, that's the opening to the portal. That's the magic door you see in the trees on our website. That's what I'm trying to show is, hey, every tree, every damn house plant is a doorway to open. Step into that, not with your agenda, but with your ears, with your mouth, your taste, your nose, your heart wide fucking open.
Yeah, so critical. Absolutely so critical. It will be the gateway to a much better and more symbiotic way for each of us to exist. Because once that door opens a little bit, you find that there's an entirely new building, so to speak, metaphorically, to traverse and to understand. You go down the hallway, you find the room on your left, the room on your right, so on and so forth. Eventually you find out that this is just an enormous place. And that's not even to talk about getting outside of that door or getting outside of that house. It just means that it opens it up and it gives you a lot more to work with, a lot more imaginative freedom and mental dexterity to be able to draw from, so that you can conceive of your overall impact, so that you can conceive of how you live and what your connection is to each and every other living thing. It's absolutely critical.
It begins with awareness.
Yeah.
And that's in awareness. It's not just a light turning on, it's a dimmer switch. So you're always looking to turn it up.
Yep.
Turn that fucking light up, man. But
Yeah.
Awareness followed by connection and identity, broadening your identity, not just he, her, his, them, whatever, but
Right.
the us, the bigger, the larger picture, opening up the identity. Personal responsibility, like it or not, each and every one of us is responsible for everything we do, and like it or not, everything we don't do. Our omissions, our failings, the things we ignore, we pretend we're too lazy to deal with, that we don't even know about. That's our responsibility. It's our ability to respond that determine that, how these things come out in the world.
Critical to understand.
And I'd like everybody to not become the least bit nihilistic, because even as I say that science cannot be the cure, as important it is to reverence it. That laws are bull and that nobody's ever going to change and be a better people because of the laws that are on the books. But at the same time, I'm saying that action is needed. Action that's based on our personal purpose, sense of meaning, our mission. And every one of us has one. As magical as in a Tolkien book, each of us has a ring to bear and somewhere to take it to. And that, if we can't change the planet, like I spent the first 40 years easily, in fact, until my wife disabusing me of the notion, I was still would say, what do you do? I'm changing the world. And I think to some small degrees I do, but my idea of it was changing the course of human history through adjusting human nature and human awareness. If that's entirely impossible, which it probably is for any one person or any one social group to manage, that's not necessary for what we do. The moment we become curious and children begin, the minute we hold up the plant, help heal the person, learn how to do our own spagyrics, walk barefoot on the ground for the first time in 20 years, everything that we do is a blossoming that fulfills our story. It in and of itself makes us whole. It in and of itself makes us worthy. And damn, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. Here to that. So, we could probably go on and on and on about ecology and stuff. Let's go ahead and shift a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the herbalist books and things that you've put out. So you have books on environmentalism. You even have books, like we talked about before, on guns. Especially, it sounds like historical guns of the Wild West. Is that true?
Exactly. Yes, I have. And I'm a MMA fan and a Middle Ages history fanatic, so it's a broad interest. And what I'm finding is I'm learning more about human beings in every case, and that the same things that are valuable for us in any one single context have always been valuable in the various contexts that they've been in, and it keeps repeating itself endlessly. Herbalism has been the primary focus for the last 20 years. I just simply couldn't keep doing it all. But I have moved from field to field, always with the same message. We have 25 different herb books out now. 6 of them are written by Kiva and myself. The rest are compilations from Plant Healer Quarterly. They're long, deep, in-depth articles from all these diverse, amazing thinkers and practitioners, writing about clinical herbalism, materia medica, herbal business, herbal ethics, all in their particular way, which it makes it so beautiful. I love a compilation because, once again, it's a compendium of diverse, equally valid ways of looking at the world, which work together to form a beautiful composite.
That was one of the things that really stood out to me last year at the Good Medicine Confluence, was at the booth for the plant healer booth. Mm-hmm. There were so many books by so many authors. I mean, a single book may have had 14 or more contributors to it. It's really amazing, with huge names too, like Seven Song has been at rainbow gatherings and med tents for God, I don't even know how many years, and many other events besides that. Shayna Lipnick Grover, she's absolutely fantastic. Phyllis Light. I mean, I just continually was seeing names. It's like, oh wow, I've learned from them. Matthew Wood, I think, contributed to 1 or 2 of these. It was just an absolute amazing diversity of takes inside of these books. How was that for you? I mean, to be able to take all of that knowledge and all of that wisdom, how did you edit that? And how did you put all of that together? That must have taken quite a vision just in and of itself.
Well, trying to set them into books based on topical focus. And that's not easy to do, because my favorite writers tend to write about, they could be in several books at once, and each and every article. Profark and yourself are good examples of that. And just where do you stop it? If you're a pattern thinker, how do you limit, slow down that pattern to fit on a page or fit into a book? But so like we have the whole series of Materia Medica books, they're all about plants. So even though it's different practitioners and writers and all these different plants they're covering, they're doing it in slightly different ways. Their experience, their clinical experience with actual clients, their knowledge bases and their perspective is all different. So what you get is all these different ways of using, understanding, recognizing, and celebrating all these different plants. And so far we have like 4 or 5 books so far called Materia Medica volumes. The same with clinical. We have Herbal Clinician. We have, I think, 4 volumes of that out now. What I did was pull from 13 years of this publication, Plant Healer Quarterly, and taken books, articles that were specifically focused on how to use an herb. So then it's clinical application. So it's assessment, it's constitutions, it's how specific diseases and conditions and how you would best treat them, whether it's topically, teas, herbal balms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so all of the books fill a niche, and yet all of them are diverse voices. So it's been really exciting and fantastic for me. It's like going to putting on a party where you don't want to leave because you're enjoying it so much.
Seriously. Well, and every single one of these books are awesome. You've got them all available on planthealerbookstore.com. And you can get to that just by going to planthealer.com and then traveling around to the bookstore section on that website. So I'm really excited for that. Also, let's talk a little bit about the Plant Healer Quarterly. This is kind of one of the bigger publications that you do. The Herbaria Monthly typically pales in comparison with the size and the amount of articles and even the content of the articles that you typically have in the quarterly publication. How did you decide that you wanted to do both? I mean, you have the Plant Healer Quarterly coming out, and did that start first before the Herbaria Monthly, or did they start at the same time? Tell me more about that.
Well, we started out with the event, quickly followed it with Plant Healer Quarterly in order to make use of it and share everybody's wisdom. It was part of the way we gave to our teachers. It wasn't, here, we're going to make you famous and we're going to pay you all this money. It was, you can be a part of this community if you love it and provide, and share and give to this community and help grow it as one of its elders, as one of its formants. And that's where Plant Healer came from. So the original articles were teachers, as still is the case, are teachers at the event. So it goes fairly hand in hand. Herbaria really came about for one reason only. We need to make a living. We scarcely do. We give out so many scholarships and do so much service work that we don't have health insurance, can barely pay bills to take care of this wild sanctuary we're at. It's not our priority. That's not even a complaint. It's simply our model is we don't have a business model. We have a mission model. So Herbaria is free. It was like, not everybody can afford even $19 per issue for a quarterly. That's all we charge, is $19 for 250 pages of information and photographs and artwork. And it's not just about herbalism, as you well know. But Herbaria is free, so you can have not a penny to your name. You can have only a passing interest in herbalism. You can think you might wonder how cannabis helps you, or how a sense of place is relevant, or any of the many things that are covered in there. You might be brought into an entirely new way of looking at the world through something that you didn't have to pay for, didn't expect, and that is our gift to you. So every month, in the midst of all the other work that we do here, the event and the quarterly, which takes 3 months to build that quarterly, I try to produce a 70 to 80 page herbaria that has not only excerpts from the quarterly, but also new original material they won't see anywhere else, for the sake of a gift. Basically, we want to give to the people in a way that will help them be a gift to others.
That's absolutely spectacular. And for those of you who are listening, when you are a presenter at the Good Medicine Confluence, you are actually expected to write some of these articles in order to be able to contribute to this body of knowledge and to be able to contribute to the Herbaria and the Plant Healer Quarterly. So because I am a speaker, I will actually be producing some articles for them before long. Getting around to writing them took me a couple of months, but we are most of the way through, by the way, Wolf. So with that being said, though, if you guys are interested in reading my articles, the only way you're going to be able to do that is to sign up. I've got the links below in the description for the Herbaria and the Plant Healer Quarterly. Now, like you were mentioning, a lot of the book content that you created actually came from the Plant Healer Quarterly. So one of the best ways to get that content before it even hits into book form is to subscribe and get the Plant Healer Quarterlies. And you have back issues available, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I think that that is just an absolutely fantastic resource. And literally, there are so many good herbalists, good plant teachers, good ecologists, so on and so forth, that are contributing articles to this. It has really just kind of blown my mind. And you can visit some of these links and take a look at some of those for yourself. I remember when I saw that Matthew Wood and Sean Podrick O'Donoghue and a couple of other individuals had contributed, I was like, oh wow, like I've worked with them, I've studied with them, I've collaborated with them, and to be able to see that level of quality that I know that they have contributing to this spoke really loudly to me. So I think it's really awesome that you've put together such a beacon of light for this community and created a community out of it. Like I said, is like people from all different walks of life are actually part of this, whereas they're not necessarily with Bastyr University, for instance, or these, more prestigious chemical herbalism colleges and universities and things like this. It's like there's not that much of a community there. It's actually, I sometimes joke and call it a diversity or even an adversity sometimes. People, oh, my school is better than yours. Oh, you studied folk herbalism. Oh, you studied the magical uses of plants. Oh, you studied this and this and this. And there's no cohesion. You've been able to bring everybody together in a way that I feel is really, really beautiful, fun, and unique. So if for nothing else, I mean, you've accomplished an enormous amount just in that regard, in getting people who otherwise may have significant differences to create conversations and to learn and grow from those.
Oh, thank you for saying so.
So what other projects do you have on your plate right now? I know that you're getting ready for the Good Medicine Confluence. This is a huge undertaking. In fact, tell us a little bit more about the lodge this year. I think it's going to be at Puma Hills in Colorado. Tell us a little bit about that and about that venue. How did you find that even? Because it's beautiful. If you guys haven't seen it, go to planthealer.org, then go to the Good Medicine Confluence drop down, and just take a look at any single one of those drop down tabs. You will begin to see that there are such amazing photos of the venue that Wolf has scheduled this at this year, Wolf and Kiva. It is outstanding to me. So take a look at those, and I'll pull up some screenshots while you're talking here.
Yeah, I think we pretty much lucked out on getting that place. We're treated so well at Fort Lewis College in Durango, and it's so beautiful there. We might not have left hadn't they mistakenly told us that they would have no affordable lodging for our people. Making sure there's wide, diverse lodging for everybody, from the elderly that need a comfortable bed to people that want to just sleep in their car or throw out a tent. I want all those options available because we have such a diverse panoply, really, of people that are a part of this tribe. We suddenly found ourselves in a rush in November. Usually everything is settled by December, but we didn't even know where our spot would be suddenly. So did probably our 9th or 10th vast search and query letters to hundreds of places. We weren't willing to leave the Southwest or be outside of the mountains, forested area. So taking that into account, they were either too small of tiny little YMCA-like things, too ritzy, a hotel, a convention center, an AHG type, environment. It was all these kinds of places that weren't appropriate to what is a very natural, experiential, trip of an experience. And we found this place called Puma Hills. It's near Lake George, Colorado, not that far. It's not that far from Denver. And I I'd say it's an hour and a half from Denver and an hour and a half from Colorado Springs. The people there were already dedicated to making it a healing center. They work with first responders. They work with all kinds of people, including vets coming back with PTSD, to give them this magical environment in which they can come in and start their healing process. Beautiful structures that they built. They've got teepees and tents and a giant lit up illuminated festival tent. And just really a bent over backwards to welcome this community of healers as part of a shared mission and a shared purpose. So we're very, very happy to be there. It will be July 18th will be registration day, and it'll go all the way through Saturday night when we'll have a big, huge dance and masquerade ball with Gina, the Queen of Air, spinning some tunes. So it should be a wild time. 4 days of classes in what I think is the most beautiful environs that we've ever had at an event yet.
Yeah, I mean, as I was going through that PDF that had a lot of the venue pictures, I was amazed. And when registration opened up just a few days ago on February 1st, I guess that must have been about a week ago now, for camping and lodging, I mean, they have a huge lodge. They have geodesic domes you can rent out. Like you said, teepees, they have some glamping things. They have tent spaces. They have even more kind of primitive type of camping where you can bring your own tent or other things there. They have what are those called? Canistoga wagons, for
Right.
Christ's sake. I mean, it's just a really, really amazing place. And some of the breathtaking views that were showed and featured there is amazing. They have, you and I were talking via email about 3D guided archery. Like, what the hell is that even? I mean, oh man, I'm just so excited for this place. And of course, it's at 9,000 feet. So you're approaching the rattlesnake line right there for the Rocky Mountains.
Folks are coming from all over, so they're coming in part to see that, I think, too, they would have experienced Colorado Rocky Mountains if they could have anyway, and it's especially its floral diversity. It's just so gorgeous, absolutely friggin' gorgeous. And but they're coming to a surprise. I mean, not that many of them are locals. We get several dozen locals, but really these are people from all over the world that identify with this plant healer tribe, and they'll be coming to this absolutely gorgeous Colorado event to experience that alpine feel and the alpine light and the gorgeous wildflowers along with the plant walks and the classes. So it should be really exciting.
Oh yeah. I'm so excited. I really loved Fort Lewis College and loved Durango last year. It was great in many, many ways, but this is just such a huge step up. It's hard to even express from an attendee's perspective. Like, oh wow, this is a big step up. And I'm hoping that there's a lot more interest even because of that. Going to, Durango is just surrounded by tons of beautiful nature all over. And you go up into Silverton and, down through Ouray and other things like that. I mean, absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. But this is accessible too. This is more accessible than Durango for most because, you can get there from Denver. There's even, I think Puma Hills even offers a shuttle service from Denver, a round trip.
That's special for us too, so that our people that don't have as much money and much funds could get transportation there from the airport and back again. They're not served by any public transport, so they rented the vehicles, the vans, especially for us. So I feel like they've done everything they could to welcome people, and that is a beautiful thing, because this event, the Plant Healer community, is really based on feelings, on feeling good about ourselves, what we do, and loving each other. And this really reinforces that, and we're very thankful to them for it.
Oh man, I'm so excited for this event. Actually, there are such a huge number of names. Again, you were so gracious. There's only two of us, if I remember right, Dr. Kenneth Profruck and myself, that are teaching 4 classes this year. Is that true?
Well, we did get a third overly ambitious outlaw intellectual, so that makes 3 of you guys. Logan Keister, who will be a first-time teacher, but he had such fascinating classes and he insisted that he could do 4. So by gosh, if you're so fascinating, I can't stand to turn down any of your suggestions. then I
Seriously.
better hope you can roll with it, guy.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's cool. So there's 3 people teaching 4 classes now. And then you have how many other teachers? Like 100 and something?
There's
Or
there's
40 something teachers, but I mean total
43
classes.
teachers. There will be close to 150 classes total. Yeah, it's a rather magnificent mix.
Man, I think the hardest thing for most people is just going to be just like it was last year is how do I take all of the classes that I want to take? And the answer
Well,
is you
yeah,
probably can't.
you can't. No, there's going to be 5 at a time, simultaneous in multiple slots. So each time slot, you will pick your favorite of those 5 to attend. Not by favorite, I just mean that which feels you're most compelled to take right now, that you're most excited about or need the most for your training. I try very hard to not have too much overlap. So like, there'll be 1 fermenting, not 2 classes, try to do only 1 spagyrics and, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
An even mix of materia medica, hands-on workshops where you get to actually touch and handle the medicine making process or art or whatever the process is. And have that be a balance so that each of those 5 contributes something. And you might want to go to all 5 of them. There's be 1 in particular that's a standout that speaks to you, sings to you.
Yeah.
I've got to take that. I've got to see that. And that's basically the main way we do it. Plus, I have to know which teacher works well in the morning, which can't wake up from their hangover from partying the night before enough to talk.
Yep.
Those that might get a little late and have to make it on a later date, et cetera. There are a lot of factors that go into the schedule, but by the time it's done, it will be all that I can do to make it the best experience for them as well as for all you attendees, because our teachers mean so much to them. This is for them, with them, and couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, so true. So true. Well, and for those, do you know off the top of your head if Warren is presenting again this year?
Yes, he is.
Good. I'm glad.
Warren Kistenbroker, or other alchemist madman.
Exactly. Yeah. Gosh, he's so cool. So for those of you who are interested in spagyria and in alchemy and so on and so forth, there are several of us there who are teaching classes about this. I know that I'm teaching on spagyria, specifically on different items of pharmacopoeia and how to be able to take them, utilize them, understand them, and know when to use them. This is the biggest thing for practitioners these days.
Yeah.
Is that they don't know how to utilize different items of spagyric pharmacopoeia, and so we're relinquished to just sticking with spagyric tinctures. So I'm really excited to speak on that and to help other herbal practitioners to know what items of pharmacopoeia to use and when to use them and for what types of conditions and so on and so forth, because that really just simply isn't talked about. There's very few people out there that have clinical experience in that like I do. Then Warren is also going to be there, and Warren is a good friend, a colleague of mine, has been for many, many years. And he's also an absolute whiz kid, you guys, at Tesla style energy dynamics and high frequency energy. He's been building Tesla coils and Tesla generators. In fact, he's planning on working on some of these for our property in West Virginia. So it's really, really amazing. He can actually take high frequency electricity and transmit it through the ground at rates of over 100 feet without even a 3% loss. So it's really significant to people who are interested in energy and abundant free energy to be able to take a look and just to come and talk to him and meet him and so on and so forth. And I know that last year the masquerade was just an awesome hit. That is such an annual feature where people can just dress up, do whatever it is that they want to do, dance to the music, have fun. You meet so many fun people and have such good conversations. The things that you learn in classes are great. The things that you learn over meals and the things that you learn at the social events, I think, are equally
yes
as valuable.
Well, and we don't separate the without naming any names. There are several major conferences, herbal conferences, and new spirituality conferences that separate the speakers from the attendees. They eat by themselves, et cetera, et cetera. We do just the opposite. We thrust you all together, and you go crazy with all the possibilities of interaction and community and communication, because people leave these things, they have to have enough energy and connections and new alliances, new ideas to last them a year of being perhaps in a place that's not as supportive of whatever it is that they do, whatever spiritual or practical or healing practice they do. They may not be as understood, as seen, as known, recognized for who they truly are. They may have to tamp it down a little bit for the relatives or for the job. Yeah. So for a year, they have to carry the excitement of the inspiration of what this event gives them to continue this growth, this lighting up the lights on the tree. And so by the time they come back a year later, they've worked together with other people they had met at the event. They've developed their own personal vision as well as business. And they're coming back with whole new ideas that are in turn new gifts that bring people into new areas of new ways of thinking. And so it's a wild adventure.
Yeah, it really is. And in fact, I became such a personal fan of this event. I'm coming back until you kick me out, basically. And we have gotten in pretty deep, actually. We'll be selling tickets by the time this episode comes out to the Confluence. So if you guys want to buy those from our site, a portion of the proceeds actually goes to the Phoenix Aurelius Research Academy to help us continue our research with spagyrics and plant medicine. We also are sponsoring the Confluence again, just like we did last year. We have an enormous presence. We want to be able to support what you're doing over there, Wolf, with every fiber of our being, because it was hands down the coolest and the best experience that I have ever seen for me to learn about various walks and modalities and practices of herbalism and just, ecocentricity and, other different types of topics. It just kind of blew my mind, and developed the coolest friendships in the most unlikely of places as well. I don't have enough good things to say about it. So I don't want to make this about us too much, but definitely if you're interested in the classes I'm going to be teaching, just for the cost of admission to this Confluence, you'll be getting these classes much cheaper than what those classes will show up for on our Teachable after the event. So if you are interested in just attending my classes, this is hands down the cheapest way of doing it. And I guarantee it's going to be something that you remember for a lifetime, because there will not just be my work there. You're going to experience other people of profound genius and of inspiration that you are going to be hard pressed to find anywhere else, especially all in one place. So consider coming. Go visit the link that we have down in the description, get yourself some tickets, and let's meet up at the Confluence this year. And like Will said, a lot of people, they always have questions, want to come and hang out with a lot of the speakers and stuff like this. This is the one event where I make myself available to absolutely everybody. We're all on the same page. It's just like one big brotherhood, community hood. I know people are going to get up in arms about the brotherhood thing. Community of awesome people. So we're quickly approaching the end of our conversation here, or at least topics that I wanted to cover for this call here, Wolf. Do you have any other projects or things that are coming up that you want to let people know about?
Well, I welcome people to go both to the bookstore and to the Hedge Guild Oracle page on the website, which is my less scientifically acceptable set of Oracle cards, which I think are very helpful tools for people clarifying their contextual conditions and situations and criteria in the moment, so we can make powerful, dare I say, magical decisions in our lives as we go on our own personal path. I provided the artwork for each, as I did for the website. Kiva Rose, my amazing wife, who's basically the inspiration for the event and so much else. If it hadn't been for her, I think I would be doing something else equally insane, perhaps considerably different. But she also contributes a lot of the writings about the plants themselves. I talk about the ways that they symbolize other things in our lives, from empowerment to awareness and the other themes that we've talked about today. But it's called the Hedge Guild Oracle. And that's my most recent project. Other than that, I welcome them to start out with the free Herbaria monthly, to write us anytime they want personally with any needs that they have, and to please feel our appreciation that they're part of our lives. They make me feel good about humans being a part, and perhaps a dominant part, an extensively effective, powerful part of the planet. And I love you folks, and I thank you.
Cool. Jesse, Wolf, my brother, my friend, I want to thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with us. This will probably be the first of many talks. We didn't really get to even touch bases on animism, on Nordic animism, of indigenous spirituality, and other different types of topics that we are so connected in during this interview. So we will
break it down to separate ones by subject, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely have you back on.
I need the format or the specific intention of asking you questions, because I have so many. I seldom meet anybody that's not only of a great interest and resource, but in addition feels so kindred and so on the same page. I feel like if I had a brother, it would be you. Thank you for being in my life.
Yeah, man. Thank you too. Yeah, the feeling is mutual, as you well know. So, all right, guys, if you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to reach out, support@phoenixaurelius.org. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Alchemi-Culture Podcast. We have all of the links down in the description of this video so that you can check out the bookstore on planthealer.org. You can sign up for the Herbaria monthly and get that for free. You can do the Plant Healer quarterly and subscribe to that if you would like, and help to support this amazing man and his wife in their journeys of stewardship through very vast areas in New Mexico, way outside of civilization, to be able to support the ecosystem, so many other things. And also to all of the links to be able to get your tickets to the Good Medicine Confluence. I'm not even kidding. Like, if you, based on my experience, if you just went and saw maybe 2 or 3 of the classes, it is so worth it. And because there is an international airport with a shuttle service right there, it is and meals are served on site if you stay on site. They have an entire beautiful catering service that they've bent over backwards at Puma Hills just to be able to accommodate this event and the multiple dietary restrictions that everybody has, and so on and so forth. So it is just an absolutely amazing event. I'm hoping that you're there. All of the links are down here to go to the Good Medicine Confluence pages on planthealer.org, as well as places to purchase them on their site, as well as our site. Again, if you purchase them from us, a portion of your proceeds will definitely go towards all of the spagyric research that we do here, which is a very, very pricey thing, especially now that we've started to engage in spectrometry. So your support is greatly appreciated. Again, Wolf, thank you so much for joining us, brother, and we'll have you back on soon.
Thank you, brother Scott.
Scott.